Hello, Mr. Horn here. First of all, I apologize for the distracting light. I cannot really do anything about it, unfortunately, except to turn on this light. Yeah, so I have finished reading the book for this week. It was called Het Hoogbegaafde Zusje in Autistische Familie. And yes, that is Dutch. It was a great book, interesting read. I needed some time to get used to the style. It was like more like diary style. In addition, it was written by a girl, which is also different because I'm a boy, and so I need to get used to how girls think. And in addition, of course, she was highly intelligent, uh, which is literally like not an illness, but yeah, like you have an above average IQ. Uh, so yeah. Anyway, it was an interesting read. I wouldn't say I'd recommend it to literally everyone in the world. Uh, if you like to read that sort of books, yeah, sure, do it. Otherwise, it will be beneficial to someone who is interested in learning more about how highly intelligent people think and how you should treat them. Or if you're interested in how to deal with autistic people and not like me, autistic, I have autism, but it's really low. Like yeah, it's very little. So you don't learn much about me in there, but like extremely autistic. And that was not, of course, the author, but her brother. Uh, so yeah, I would definitely recommend it if you want to learn about those things, or if you want to teach your children those things. Um, if I grab my note card, I made some bibliographic notes. Like I have literally only one piece of paper that is like my notes. So yeah, so things that I found interesting in there. Of course, correlating it with my own research, my own goals of optimizing education is like that teachers should be the example, should lead by example. That asking questions is how you learn. Of course, I already knew that. I just found an example there, which I found contradictory because like teachers were not stimulating asking questions and would find it even annoying, which is stupid because asking questions is literally how you learn, guys. Inquiry based learning. It's at least a part of how you learn. So yeah, a few pages later, I said teachers should not be hypocrites. Uh, I cannot remember the exact passage that I referred to there. Of course, I still need to make my primary notes, but I've lended the book to my grandparents or my grandmother because she was also interested in reading it. So I'll make my real notes in a day or in a few days. These are just my bibliographic notes. I've also had like that there's always something to do, that you shouldn't have a limiting mindset or make excuses like this is just who I am, because then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because you think that way, you also don't make an effort to change yourself, which is why you actually don't change, which confirms the limiting mindset. So instead, you should think in solutions like, what can I do about this? This was in this case relating to the autistic thing, but in any case, you can apply this to almost anything. Um, and I've also noticed that there should always be use for what you learn. Like if you learn something in school which you are not going to use because you already know which profession you are going to choose, then that's stupid. It's decreasing your intrinsic motivation, and intrinsic motivation is it's not essential to efficient learning, but it is really helpful. It facilitates learning. So yeah, there should always be a use, at least a use that you can see. So my um, my recommendation to teachers is to be a marketer of their own subjects and even parts or like certain chapters within their subject. Always tell students how they can use it in their personal lives, because if you're just teaching the general public, then that decreases intrinsic motivation. You want to get it higher. Also, of course, stimulate innate curiosity in students and have them ask questions and research their own stuff. Of course, give them the material to do so. But yeah, in short, just stimulate their intrinsic motivation um, by by what I said. Right. Much later in the book, like 80 pages later, something like that, I was saying like teachers and students don't know how to learn because there was a passage there that I read that the author was thinking that real studying, which he hadn't needed before, is like learning or studying for really long times, like 10 hours and stuff like that. And I'm like, no, that is not how you learn. That is inefficient learning, and also the methods that certain teachers like promote. I don't know if I read that in the book, but I know teachers of high schools promote, because I have been in high school myself, are outdated and inefficient usually. Teachers do not recommend people to make summaries or use flashcards, because those are methods that stimulate learning information in isolation, which is not how our brain works and is highly inefficient. Do not do that. Instead, I implore you to use your curiosity and read actual cognitive science. Start by reading Cognitive Load Theory by John Sweller et al. From 2011. If you know cognitive load theory, you know a little bit more about how the brain works and how you should actually learn. A few pages later, I had like that children can be assholes, which I also know. And my tip for the author and for other people who come across assholes in schools is like, ignore people and opinions. Ignoring people and their opinions means victory over life. If you are indifferent, then nothing can happen to you. Be indifferent to people whose advice you wouldn't take. Don't take criticism from people you wouldn't go to for advice. That's the general message. Be indifferent to people who are assholes, because what value do their opinions have for you? Just don't care. If you are a stoic, they cannot hurt you. Yeah, those really were my notes. I also had like down there some notes that I just had from the entirety of the book, and not specific pages, like dealing with external factors, like a master. You should do, like I said, like a stoic or something like that. And the big lesson to ignore is to be victorious. Not learn from the book, but to teach the book, actually. So yeah, those are like really the notes that I find stooding out, or not stooding out, but that stood out to me at least. Those are things relevant to my own research. Of course, you will find different things in that, but yeah. So the people I would recommend the book to are those that are interested in learning how highly intelligent people think, or how you should treat them, or how you should deal with extremely autistic people, and or if you want to teach your children that. As for next week I'll be reading this magnificent book, which already has been on my shelf for quite some time already, a few months. I just forgot I had it. And the reason I'll read it is because Mr. John Sterling from the I Can Study server on Discord, actually, who I knew before I invited him to that server, told me I had a lack in knowledge about research. So that's why I'll be reading this. And yeah, John Sterling is not a social worker from England, but yeah, that's a story only he knows that I know. So, but yeah, that's pretty interesting. So yeah, for now that was this video, and next week I'll be giving my thoughts about this book. I'll likely don't give a summary because it's not as relevant to other people. If you want to read this, it's a practical book, so you should just read it yourself. Summary has no use. All right. Until next week.